I want to start a little bit because I assume that everyone knows me and knows my background and who I am and what I'm all about. That may or may not be true. Some of my loyal followers, people that like to hear what I have to say, probably do. But first and foremost, I'm a person in long-term recovery because of access to resources at multiple levels, from inpatient to treatment, outpatient treatment, counseling by amazing mental health professionals, education. I'm huge on education, access to education for myself in all areas of my life, not just career, but learning about family and family system, access to those type of resources, access to jobs, right? I'm a person in recovery who for 15 years of my life, I carried the moniker convicted felon. So there's some significant barriers there, but so access to jobs, to those employers who were willing to say, to look past those criminal convictions and hire me, access to housing, right? All of those things. Because of access to all of those things, I live an amazing life as a person in long-term recovery today. Professionally, I teach, I say my day job, right? I love the work I get to do at Central Washington University as a professor on campus. I'm a senior lecturer and I love teaching and mentoring students. My master's, I did my undergraduate and graduate work at Central in family studies, and my master's research was in this arena. I researched all the different pathways to recovery and ways to support people who are navigating a path to recovery, right? We do pretty good in society about giving initial help, like a 21, 28-day treatment, even I say a 90-day treatment, but that's just a start, right? So I researched, how can we do this better? There's some great researchers out there that I read about and learned about. So I created a framework for Central to use for a recovery community for students in recovery on a college campus. And then I had this crazy idea because of mentoring, right? I believe in the value of mentoring colleagues on campus, people I trust and believe what they're saying. They said, hey, you should, finish your degree. I'm like, what do you mean I finished my degree? No, you should get a PhD, a doctorate. I'm like, oh God. Well, I did. So I have a doctor of education, educational leadership and management. It's, highly applicable. Actually, when I first started school, I started applying it in the classroom and in the work I do on campus. But then the really cool thing is my research surrounded this arena, how to support people in recovery from substance use disorders. So my research in my master's program was primarily focused for college campus. Well, my research in my doctoral program was really broad, but I created curriculum that I'm actually using right now in the community to teach people about what a substance use disorder is, how you can effectively help someone, and not using non-stigmatizing language. It's really, really important in the field right now, lowering the stigma. So that's a little bit about me professionally on campus. In the community, I give lectures to entities. I just did one last week through the Health Network. I'm contracted with them, where I gave a lecture on the history of the drug war. I have lots of knowledge on that. It's still going on to this day. I also work with the alternative high school, giving education there, life skills, and information and education on substance use disorders and how to find a path to recovery. I lecture to treatment centers, giving lectures in the arena of family studies, how to navigate a path for people in early recovery. I love all the work I get to do. Personally, I'm married to my amazing wife, and we're going to be rolling into our 9th year. Yep, been together for rolling into our 10th year, and we've known each other for 20 years. We're both people in recovery. My son, who's 30 years old, is a person in recovery. I have 2 grandchildren. We have 2 dogs, Daisy and Chiba. There's Chiba, yeah, and there's Daisy. Okay. So that's a little bit about me, and I want to talk today about a few things, and I decided to have this talk today because I just read over the last few days the CDC's projected numbers for overdose deaths, and it's not pretty. You know, like you can know these things in your mind that, yeah, we're probably going to see some high numbers, but when you then see it, it impacts you differently. And I've seen it, and the numbers for the year prior to from May to May 19 to 20, 81,000 overdose deaths. 81,000. That's a significant increase over the prior 12 months. And so I'm in Washington State. Our numbers are, I just had it up. I can read you what I wrote. Let me go here. I believe we're at 1454-ish through May, right? Through May. And that's a 20% increase in overdose deaths. 20%. We expected higher numbers because they've been steadily increasing, but not that high. So in all areas, we know that the pandemic has had significant effects, and it's going to take time to see those effects. I knew from day one, and my friends in recovery knew from day one, that this was going to have a negative effect for people. Number one, wanting to find a path to recovery. Number two, in early recovery. Number three, even those of us in midterm, long-term recovery, it's going to have a negative effect. One of the reasons for that, if I go to the onset, right, of getting treatment, access to treatment, many treatment centers either shut down or really minimize the amount of people they were bringing in, right? And we can agree that that was probably the right thing to do, or we could say maybe it wasn't, but that's what it was. And then it took some time to then adapt to the protocols for making sure everyone's safe and all of that. And numbers started, more people were allowed. If you look at just support for people in recovery, think about that. Already right now, our systems of care for supporting people in recovery are really, really tough in many areas. Small communities like ours, we're working hard to try to add layers of recovery. We're doing really good things. Yet with the pandemic, boom, shut down. So think about if someone had made the decision, I want help, I want to go to treatment, and then they go to treatment and then they come home and they can't even go to get the care that they want. They can't even go to support group meetings. They can't even go to the doctor, or they're fearful because of the virus, whatever. So as is the case, as we knew, mental health issues on the rise, substance use disorder issues on the rise. Now we see some hard numbers coming out. Now we see the unintended consequences of the virus. And no one's at fault for this. The virus is at fault. But it's where I'm like, hey, we have to, as a society, as a state, as a community, have to raise the white flag and say, we have to address these issues. We can't just stand back and say, well, we have to wait. No, we have to address these issues. So it's part of why I wanted to jump on this morning and talk a little bit about what I said I was going to talk about is some myth busting, right? The multiple paths to get to and stay in recovery. I'm passionate about this. It's part of why I started doing these talks with guests. I'm excited. Next week, I'm going to have Angel Stempert on, and she is a person in long-term recovery who has navigated a path to get to and stay in recovery in her own beautiful way. Just like I have navigated a path to get to and stay in recovery in my own beautiful way. And so that's part of why I started doing those recovery talks with Dr. D. So I'm excited to do more of those. So you might be saying to yourself, well, what do you mean multiple pathways to recovery? Okay, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you. So here we go. So if you look at, and this is a great document, there's a researcher in the field, William Wright. He's been in the field of substance use disorders and paths to recovery. He does a lot of writings on this. And he did this writing in partnership with Facing Addiction, which is an organization that's been in place for a long time and really fueling the need to, one, really put a positive face to substance use disorders on the recovery side, right? Really encouraging people to say, hey, if you have found a path to recovery and your life is improved, tell people about that, right? And here's one of the things, and I'm going to talk about multiple pathways to recovery. And this is what I do. I want to talk about something, and that is that we need more people who are enjoying a life in recovery to speak loudly about that. Why? I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Why? Because we hear, right? The CDC just released the numbers for the massive amount of deaths attributed to substance use disorders. We watch shows. So there was just a documentary released about the massive amount of issues in the Seattle area with people with substance use disorders, right? We hear about the latest actor or famous person who's, went off the wagon. I hate that term, but who has returned to use and massive issues. What we don't hear enough about are the people in recovery. And here's why I want you to do that. I want you to speak loudly about it, not just doing this like I'm doing, but getting involved in your community and saying, hey, I'm a person in recovery and I've navigated a path to recovery and I found that it works really well. And I've also seen the barriers that I faced getting to where I'm at, right? If you've come through systems, right, the criminal justice system, through the healthcare system, through having issues finding housing or getting jobs, and it's solely because of a life you used to lead, but you're not leading now, you've changed your life, and you should have access to those things, I need you to speak loudly about that. I need you to get on a community board. I need you to run for office. I hope she hears this. Tara Simmons was just elected to the Washington State Legislature. It's great. Amazing. She's a person in recovery and formerly incarcerated, and now she can affect change because she knows firsthand the barriers that people face. So I need you to speak loudly. Tell the world about your life in recovery so we can put a positive face to recovery, and so you can knock on the doors that you need to knock on and say, hey, we need to make some change, which we need massive change in this arena. Now, multiple pathways to recovery. Let me get back to that, because it's good. I say this a lot, and so now I'm going to show you. So here we go. So, number one, so if you see on the screen, this is a newer thing, and I want to get to the page. There we go, pathways, page 7. I want to talk about medication-assisted treatment. Ooh, boy, this can be a hot topic, and it's a path to recovery, right? So keeping in mind, I know I'm scrolling up and down because I want to get to, good. So we have multiple pathways. This is great. Oh, this is so good. Ooh, I like that definition of recovery. I'm getting to the start here. There we go. I think we're going to start right there. All right. So medication-assisted treatment. If an individual's, keep this in mind, with whatever path to recovery someone has chosen for themselves. This is what I look at. As an educator in the field, as someone who was a counselor in the field, as someone who's working in my community to help people find their path to recovery, because that's my goal. My goal in my work in this arena is to help people find their path to recovery. Overall, has their life improved, right? I know people in our community who use medication-assisted treatment as their path to recovery. And here's what I look for. I'm like, wow, you're not involved in the criminal justice system anymore, meaning they're not committing crimes, they're not going to jail, they're not having to go to court. They have a job. They hold a job. They have careers. They have a place to live. They're engaged in their families. They're doing the things that I talk about here, right? So that if that person's life has improved and they're happy with where they're at, who am I to say that's not working? It's working, right? So medication-assisted treatment gets a bad rap. Some people like, well, that's just trading a drug for a drug. Well, here's my argument to that. Let's talk about caffeine. Let's talk about tobacco. let's talk about, because some who may not have a problem, meaning they don't have an addiction to alcohol, but they drink, right? Or smoke marijuana, and they say, oh, that person, they're just using a drug for a drug. Wait a second here. What are you talking about? If their life has improved, who am I to say, right? Look at this definition of addiction. In 2015, over 27 million people in the United States reported current use of illicit drug or misuse of prescription drugs. And over 66 million people, nearly a quarter of the adult and adolescent population, reported binge drinking. Alcohol and drug misuse and related disorders are a major public health challenge that are taking an enormous toll. Now, this is old. I just gave you old, meaning this is still true, but it's increased. The need for help in this area has not decreased. It's propelled through the pandemic. So we as a society have a responsibility to affect change in this area, because it's affecting all of us. It is affecting all of us. If you think it's not affecting you, it is. I can have to do a whole different lecture on tax dollars that are being spent in very negative ways, meaning it doesn't help people find their path to recovery. It actually makes it worse, that we need to affect change, okay? Remission. Here you go. Remission from substance use disorders is more common than most people realize. Supported scientific evidence, right? Evidence, data, indicates approximately 50%. I learned this in my master's program. I was like, what? No way. Yeah, it's true. 50% of adults who once met diagnostic criteria for substance use disorder, 25 million people, are currently in stable remission, 1 year or longer without those substances anymore. Even so, remission from a substance use disorder can take several years and multiple episodes of treatment, recovery support services, and/or mutual aid. What does that say? It says that people find a way, right? Some people, this is in the data, and we're going to get to paths to recovery, because I want to talk about that. Here's the definition of recovery next. Here's what might surprise some of you, or might not. I don't know. There are people who could be diagnostically diagnosed with a substance use disorder who just stop using. They just stop. And then they go on and they live their life in a healthy, productive manner. They don't ever go to treatment. They don't ever. And then we have people like myself who needed treatment. I needed multiple episodes of treatment. I needed multiple years, literally, of counseling. I needed access to multiple different supports in the communities I lived in so that I could turn it around. So what does that tell you? We have wide spectrum. We have some people who are able to just put down drugs and alcohol without any support group, without any mutual aid, without any counseling, and they can do it. And that's great that worked for them. But we also have people in the middle who might need a little bit of help, and that's okay, right? We shouldn't put these blanket statements out that, oh, well, if a person's diagnosed, they need treatment, or they need this type of support, or they have to do this, or they're going to fail. That has to stop, right? It's whatever works for the individual. I love this definition of recovery, and this Alexandre Laudet, I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong. She's a researcher in this arena. She's part of her research I used in my master's project. Great information. The essence of recovery is a lived experience. Listen to this, a lived experience of improved life quality. Remember, I just talked about that earlier, and a sense of empowerment. That the principles of recovery focus on the central idea of, this is great, hope, choice, freedom, and aspiration that are experienced rather than diagnosed and occur in real life settings rather than in the rarefied atmosphere of clinical settings. There's a lot to that, right? Living life in a positive way, right? In a nutshell, that's what I hear. Recovery is a process rather than an end state, with the goal being an ongoing quest for a better life. Boom. I like that one, right? Nowhere in there does it says recovery is a hard A, B, and C, right? or you have to do A, B, C, and D, or you're not in recovery. It doesn't say that anywhere. Now, they talk about recovery capital, and it's on 2 separate pages. So I want to go over this recovery capital. It says the whole collection of resources an individual may use to facilitate their ongoing recovery. Okay? While an individual may be able to find and maintain recovery, the collection of resources they have at their disposal, have at their disposal, aid in the long-term growth and maintenance of the recovery. This is what I just talked about a few minutes ago. Because I had access to those multiple pieces to get to and stay in recovery, I've been able to create this life that I have. I've worked hard to do all I had, and I've faced significant barriers along the way. And somehow I found a way. I don't know how in many cases, but this talks about that, right? That recovery capital. What is it? And this is great because when I give my lecture, I talk about many of these areas: social, family, friends, group and community supports, significant part of a life in recovery. Physical assets like money and property, right? And how do you get money? You work. Yeah. People in recovery are some of the hardest working people I know. You give them a chance and they will blow you away with their capabilities and their willingness to work hard and rise to the top, right? But you have to be able to get a job. Many people in recovery have criminal records. They won't even get an interview. And it's sad because here's what happened for me. The second I found a life in recovery, criminal behavior, boom, gone. Never happened. But for me, until 2010, anytime I applied for a job, anytime I put on a rental application or application for credit in many cases, I had to check that box and gone. No one would talk to me. Where there are some things going on in states like ours where it's called ban the box. It's not saying employment agencies or employers can't do background checks. It's not saying landlords can't do background checks. But what it's saying is you can't force someone to put that on that initial application. You can ask them later. You can ask them to submit to a background check after you've met them and had a conversation and they've had an opportunity to show you, hey, you know what? I used to live a different life and I'll do your background check. I'm more than happy to. I know it's required, but here's what I'm doing now. Isn't that great? That's a great thing to have. Human skills, education, personal drive, that human capital, so important. I was fortunate in 1996 when I very first really got into recovery and got access to those needed resources. I went through a program for people in early recovery where I was able to see that, you know what, I thought I didn't have skills because I had low self-esteem, but I did. And with a little honing of the skills, I could really propel, right? Cultural values, beliefs, attitudes linking social conformity and social behaviors, right? We as communities need to embrace people in recovery, make them an integral part of our communities. Not just say those people over here, but our people with us, right? Really good. So here's what it says. In essence, the more recovery capital individuals are able to access, the better chance they have for long-term recovery growth or maintenance. And here's, I think I said this at the beginning of this one. Keep this in mind. In our society, we're pretty good. There are significant barriers facing just getting to treatment, but we're pretty good at giving 21, 28 days and done of treatment. We're pretty good at that. After that, we as a society fail people, right? With ongoing recovery supports. We're starting to see change in communities. We're starting to see money come down that will support these efforts, which is money well spent. But historically, we've not been good at it. So we're getting better. Now, we're going to talk about the multiple pathways to get to and stay in recovery. So number one, I talked about, not everyone needs to go to treatment. Some people just stop. And then they might engage with one of these support systems that I'm going to talk about. They might just engage, change their circle of influence. I talk about circle of influence. Those people that I engage with on a regular basis. Well, I, as a person in recovery, number one, I don't engage with naysayers. People that are always Debbie Downers and talking down. It's like, I need positive people. I need people that have shared belief systems that I do. I have people in my circle of influence that are in recovery themselves, and those that aren't. Those that are just leading good, positive lives, right? It's that recovery capital that we really need, those support systems. So Refuge Recovery has become my main pathway and program for not only finding freedom from the suffering of addiction, but also finding emotional sobriety. As someone who doesn't subscribe to the idea that I'm powerless and require a deity to turn my life over, I found such strength and encouragement in following a Buddhist path that's been followed for 2,600 years. This is one individual's path that supports their recovery, an organization, a group, a support system, Refuge Recovery. It's working for him. He has a great smile on his face. It must be working. He probably has a great life. Some like myself, right? I have been completely abstinent from all substances since March 25th of 2007. Now, prior to that, I had also been completely abstinent from all substances for 10 and a half years, and I returned to use in the fall of 2006. And for myself, returning to use didn't work. I have many friends who I've seen that cycle happen for them, that they need to be completely abstinent. But guess what? And the data supports this. That is not the case for everyone. I have a friend right here in Ellensburg who was involved in heavy drug usage. Heavy, right? You're like, oh man, ugly. He discontinued, and he now just has a glass of wine once in a while. Oh my God, right? I do that because some people are like, oh man, it's not going to go well. Well, I hope he makes it. We'll be here if he doesn't. No, stop it, right? There are many people who are able to discontinue the use of one substance that was causing massive issues for them in their life. Could be criminal justice issues, could be family issues, could be a myriad of physical, whatever, mental health issues. They stop and they just use a lower, like they drink once in a while, they smoke marijuana once in a while, and their life has improved. If you look at them, if they didn't tell you that, right? If they didn't give you that information, you would look at their life and go, wow, they have a job. They have a great family life. They have a great support group of friends in the community. They're involved in their community. Well, they run, they exercise. Their life has improved. 12-step fellowships, right? The one most people know and hear about the most. Great organizations that help thousands of people, right? Based on the originators' 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And many other groups have come out of this. And it says, in addition to stay at an inpatient treatment facility, as well as residence in a recovery home, my personal journey to recovery has included membership and participation in a 12-step fellowship. The 12 steps and their philosophy of powerlessness over my addiction, faith, something bigger than myself, and reaching out to others has reshaped my thinking and my perspective on life. I'm forever grateful for the 12 steps for reshaping my life and for helping me understand the true meaning of gratitude. That's beautiful. That works for him, right? And just like the others that work for the other people, this works for this individual and many others like him. Other pathways. Natural recovery. That's like, what? Natural recovery? Now look, listen to this. And this is by William White, one of the longest researchers in this arena. Done lots of writings and research. People look up to this individual. Natural recovery is, according to some studies, the most common recovery pathway. But the prevalence of this style declines as a problem duration and severity increase. Natural recovery is a more viable pathway for people with shorter and less severe alcohol and other drug problems, and for those with higher incomes and more stable social and occupational supports. There's a lot in this one, and it's really interesting. So number one, many people just stop using and turn things around. But this shows the barriers. Well, it's usually people that have a lot of resources, right? Higher socioeconomic statuses. So what we may not know is they have access to counseling through insurance, through a mental health professional. They have a job and a house and family that support them at higher levels than those with lower socioeconomic status and minority groups, right? In impoverished communities that don't have access to resources. Yet it's important that it is a path, right? Recovery does happen just naturally. So we talked about recovery mutual aid groups, obviously a significant path to and supporting people in recovery. And there are all sorts of types of recovery and support groups. In smaller communities like ours in little old Ellensburg, Kittitas County, we don't have access to the same amount of mutual aid support groups as, say, Pierce County or King County or bigger metropolis cities like New York or Los Angeles. That's where you really see massive amounts of support groups. So I talked about 12-step groups, right? 12-step fellowships based on the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, and that works for many. Celebrate Recovery, which is the 12 steps adapted to Christianity, a Christ-centered type program. LifeRing is a nonprofit, abstinence-based, worldwide network, and these are people who live life in recovery from addiction to alcohol or to other non-medically indicated drugs. Now, this is the difference, and this is where some people go, oh, I don't know, right? No, it works for them. LifeRing believes people do have the power to overcome their addiction and that the individual is the best person to design their own program. That works for them. Smart Recovery, another program based on a science-based, I've ran Smart Recovery programs. I've been involved in 12-step programs. I've had experience in a few of these different programs. They're all great. They all work in their own way. But Smart empowers people to own their responsibility for their recovery using a 4-point program. So you learn how to support your recovery using science-based techniques. So the important thing to understand, so there's some of the paths to recovery, right? There are multiple pathways to get to and stay in recovery. And this is what I have on my sheet. Here's a myth that has to die. The one way or the highway, that has to die. It's my way or, well, good luck. I hope you make it, right? And it's changing in the field of substance use disorder treatment. And that's good. It should, as it should, right? Some treatment centers do it this way and some doing it the other. I believe the best treatment center would really wrap around the individual and support what's going to work for them. So the one way or the highway has to die. There are multiple pathways to get to and stay in recovery. One other myth that I wrote down, and it's hard maybe to hear this because I just gave you those devastating numbers with overdose deaths, right? Devastating numbers. I think about IV drug use, heroin, fentanyl, which kills you, right? Can just like that kill you. It's scary. But here's another myth. The myth is, well, I guess they're just not ready yet. They have to hit rock bottom. That's a myth, and that myth has to die. I don't even like using that term. I just like to say, hey, what can we do to help someone recognize that if they change their relationship with drugs and alcohol, their life can improve? I don't even use the term rock bottom. It's a stigmatizing term. It really perpetuates that myth that, well, maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I just need to go get high more. Maybe I just need to die? Is that the rock bottom we're talking about? No, people don't have to end up in jail. People don't have to die. People don't have to overdose. We as communities can find innovative ways to reach people sooner, right? And there are many programs that are starting to help intervene sooner than later, right? So that's a myth that someone has to hit rock bottom before they'll choose to turn their life around. I just gave you data that many people just wake up and go, you know what, this isn't working for anymore. I'm gonna turn things around. That happens a lot in a lot of cases. All right, so I want to close with techniques to support what I believe is the way to go. Ooh, I paused because, is it David's way or the highway? Well, you know what? If you don't like what I hear, do what you're doing, right? If we all as people in recovery scream and shout about our way and show people all the different ways, that's a good thing. So I'm going to say, if you don't like what I share, if you don't think the things I share will work for you, that's okay. But these are the things that I do. So number one, I think it's vitally important to pay attention to our physical and mental health. And this is from day one. I just had a chat with a friend and I said, if I open David's treatment center with my model, right, the Douglas model, the Douglas method, exercise will be an integral part of it from day one, right? Yeah, of course, you need to make sure if someone's physically able, but I'm serious about this. Paying attention to our physical health, paying attention to what we put in our body. I don't believe that we should say, I found myself saying this, well, it's not too bad that I'm eating like crap all the time. I used to smoke crack, so it's better. Okay, that might be okay once in a while. But I've learned and I know that what I put in my body nutrition-wise has a direct impact on my physical health, of course, but my mental health. So I think it's vitally important to pay attention to our physical health. Doing those scary things in early recovery, going to the doctor, getting checkups. I go to the doctor every year and get a physical, right? Going to the dentist, scary for people in early recovery. Hey, I've had thousands of dollars of work on my grill. And I remember early recovery, it was scary going to the dentist because there was a lot going on. But it's vitally important to pay attention to our physical health, our mental health. We know it's in that document, and you can read about, it's called co-occurring disorders, right? I learned in 96 when I got into recovery because I had support, thank God for that. And I went and saw a psychiatrist and a mental health professional. And I learned that I had been suffering with depression, PTSD, anxiety due to childhood trauma for years of my life. I didn't even know it, didn't even realize it. It was time to address it. Really important to pay attention to these issues. And I say this from day one, right? To start addressing these issues, for communities to support people in early recovery, to have access to the resources, right? Family. I do a lecture for an all-male inpatient treatment center, and any treatment center I do this in, I say, who has children in this room? Hands go up. Who has someone that's, really been there for you along the way? Who has mom in their life still? Who has a significant other that's outside the walls of the treatment center waiting for you, right? Family is so important. It's important to heal yourself. And it's important for family members to engage in that healing process. It's important for that whole family system to heal, right? To not forget about Aunt Sue, who was there for you through all of the crazy, right? And bailed you out of jail. To not, when you get in recovery and you're just with recovery people and you forget about those people in your life that were there for you along the way. But family's so important. That goes into financial health. Taking care of financial health. I used to have a stack of bills I carried around with me like a brick weight. Just, oh my God, it was so heavy. I had to start taking care of that. And that meant I had to get a job, career vocation. I had to get busy. That's what I say. It's right here. Get busy, right? In all of these areas. Have that support around you. Have people in your life. Those are my people, right? Have people around you, wrapping their arms around you, cheering you on so that you can do these things. so that you can, you know what, get the job you have to get at the time so that you can start paying on if you have back child support, if you have bills, if you can start chipping away at that, right? Do those things. This is where it comes to community support, employers being friendly to hiring people in recovery from substance use disorders, right? So important. Community, having a community that's on this. I have recovery support, right? Recovery support is really all of these things. And I say recovery support if you're involved in Smart Recovery, or if you're involved in Celebrate Recovery, or if you're involved in 12-step programs of any type, whatever it is. Yes, do that, but also community as a whole, right? It's kind of, and I'm going to wrap this up where I talked about at the beginning. I want you to get involved in the community you live in as a person in recovery. Share with the world that it's working for you. Share with the world the barriers that you have faced or continuing to face, and get in a position, because you can. I've done it. I see other people do it, to affect change, right? Get on a board, start an organization, do the things that you want to do to help others navigate a path. Because this is what it says for my Facebook page. Your path is the right path. It is. Recovery works, lives change. Nowhere in either of those does it say, and nor do I believe. Yes, I'm passionate. I'm biased. I have to remember that when I talk to my son, because our paths that we use to maintain our recovery are different. But he's my son, I'm his father, and we both walk side by side as people in recovery, enjoying the fruits of our paths that we have navigated and continue to navigate in recovery. And so I love on him and he loves on me. We disagree, and that's okay. But I will not say to him, oh no, I don't know, dude. Good luck. No, that's garbage, as he won't with me. Recovery does work and lives do change. The Seahawks game is about to come on, so I'm going to go turn it on. I hope you've enjoyed what I've said today. I'm really excited. Next week, I'm doing another recovery talk with Dr. D with my niece, Angel, who has her path. Yes, I'm so excited for her to share her story and talk about her recovery. So join us and have a great Sunday.